This is the media ministry of Christian Life Center on beautiful Whidbey Island. Remember, faith doesn't make all things easy, it makes all things possible. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Media Christian Life, and check out our website, clcwhidbey.com, for more resources.
With each story, there's going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I hope that I convey each of those so that you can understand the glory and the grace that God has given to me. I'll start by reading 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 15. Here's a trustworthy saying that deserves full acceptance. Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners, to whom I am the worst. I have told multiple people if they were to actually know who I am and what is in my heart, they would probably not want to sit next to me in church. And I truly feel that way most days. So let me start out with my beginning. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was a DNC baby. I wasn't supposed to be born. My mom had her tubes tied. She had a DNC, and yet I was still born. For that reason, my mom called me her miracle baby. When I was about 7 years old, a dog saved my life. I was getting ready to cross the street, and a dog came and basically started barking at me, caused me to step back, and as I stepped back, a car came and hit the dog. Killed the dog, but when I was 11, I was using a rifle with my dad, and I had a click, no bang. For you that understand weapons, the click no bang basically is where the round does not dislodge out of the rifle. Luckily, I was out of rounds. I didn't realize that I had to click no bang, and it wasn't until I went to clean the rifle that I found the round was still in the rifle. I can go on. There's multiple times that I shouldn't have been here. And the only reason I bring that up for the beginning is because I was raised Mormon. And being Mormon, every Mormon mom seems to think that their child's going to be the next prophet. And my mom constantly reminded me, "Oh, you're a miracle child. You're not supposed to be here. God's got a plan for you." So it was constantly, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, which puts a lot of pressure on a young child. So that's kind of the background about the mindset, where my mind was and the pressure that was on me. And the fact that I was raised Mormon, which a lot of that, still had that spiritual upbringing, but it's not the saving grace that is taught in a Christian environment. The Mormons, they believe, and I've got a lot of friends that are Mormon. I love them to death, and they're great people, but they don't have that saving grace, scriptural-based teaching that we have, and it's really a works-based teaching. So I had that in my own life, where you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. Well, I was also abused as a child. My stepdad, and then he adopted us, was very abusive. If he had it in his hand, it was going across my head. Hammer. If something I did didn't please him, and he had a hammer in his hand, he was hitting me across the head with the hammer. He's broken pitchers on my sister's head. He's broken a hard hat on my head once. He once beat me up because I complained that my brother had beat me up. He was just very abusive. So, and he also mentioned multiple times that I was never going to amount to anything other than basically retreading tires. That'll come in play later in life. So just that mindset that I didn't think I was worthy of much, but at the same time, I was meant to be through all these trials because I was going to be the next prophet. And that's truly how I was raised. That, hey, you just got to shut up and allow it to happen, because later on scriptures will be written about you. When I turned 18, I had fallen in love with a young lady, and we had decided to do things that were not scripturally bound, and I fell away from the church because it was either I had to choose her or I had to choose what I had been taught my whole life. And shortly after, she broke up with me, and that sent me into a spinning tail dive, because I didn't know where to go at that point. I had thought, well, she was the one, so I gave up all of that background for her to be left in the dark. And because the Mormon church is so works-based, I was a nothing. And the whole time I was chosen. So I went from being chosen to being a nothing. Shortly after, of course, I got married to my wife now. We had some problems early in, so this is kind of that mid-story. I've already feel like I'm a failure, and I get married, and at this point in my life, I had fallen away from all kind of grace. I stopped believing in God. I was either not agnostic or atheist. I couldn't tell. It really, really ate at my heart to think that I was atheist, because I knew there had to be something, but I couldn't see it and I couldn't feel it. So, was I agnostic? I don't know. Was I atheist? I don't know. So, in the marriage, with that mindset, we weren't going to church. We weren't functioning as a Christian house. I started looking outside of the marriage. There were a lot of things in my life that were making me very unhappy in marriage. A lot of that had to do with my background. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel worthy to be married. I often questioned my own attractiveness. One of the things that my ex-fiance told me when she broke up with me is the only reason she went out with me was because she felt sorry for me. So I really started feeling like I'm a nobody. And I let myself get to that point that my marriage is broken, well, I'm just a nobody. So I started looking outside of the marriage to try to make me feel like a somebody. And about 2007, 2008, that really took a peak. So me and my wife kind of separated there about 2008, 2009 frame period. And it was about the same time I got deployed to Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, I was the first sergeant for a hospital, and I saw a lot of death, and I saw a lot of boys that they would never be the same, and it affected me quite extensively. Shortly before we were to return, I got injured lifting one of our patients in the hospital, and I had to return separate from the unit, and there was some botched surgeries by the military, and they put me on pills. So I've come back and I'm broken. I'm broken in my marriage already. I'm broken spiritually already. I'm looking for love outside of the marriage to try to fulfill something in me that was broken from the very beginning. I've come back and I'm doing drugs that are prescribed, but they're still drugs. I'm doing alcohol because that's the one way that I can cope. And my wife and I are separated, which means I'm also not seeing my girls, my 2 daughters. And my life is spinning downward more than it ever was. So I continue to try to seek remedies outside of my marriage and continue to essentially live in an apartment where I only live in one small room because I can't sleep without a light on because of some of the stuff that happened in Afghanistan. And I'm doing drugs with alcohol just to try to cope and to sleep at night. And it wasn't until a psychiatrist, a counselor that I was going to for some of the stuff that I was coping with, finally said, you're never going to get fixed until you get back with your family. And it hit home. It hit home really hard. And from that point on, I put myself into a pain clinic where they would get me off the drugs. I stopped doing the alcohol, and I made amends with my wife. Now that didn't happen overnight. This is a short video. I don't want you to think that the cure happened overnight. It didn't. It took a year plus. But eventually, my wife and I made amends where I came back home. And it was from there that I found that the hole that was missing had nothing to do with, can I find someone that would find me attractive, which was what I was searching for. Can I try to be this prophet, which was what I was taught as a child? Can I try to be, this great husband? Can I try to be all these things that, I went after, and I have 5 degrees. I got a Juris Doctorate and an MBA because I was searching to prove myself, because my dad told me I was never going to amount to anything. So I was trying to prove and prove and prove and prove until finally I realized through the love that God gave me that it had nothing to do with anything I could do. And the only reason that I truly knew and understood that kind of grace was because my wife brought me back into our relationship and said, I forgive you. And it was only after she truly forgave me for me trying to find everything outside of our relationship that I understood what it meant for someone to forgive. When I was running to find, I didn't need to run anymore because I was truly forgiven. And it was only then that it truly clicked in my heart and who I was, that I was forgiven. That all the burdens that were being carried, I can't even talk about them here. Truly, I was forgiven. And it was only then that I understood God's grace. If my wife, who I abandoned, could truly forgive me and understand what I went through, what kind of love does a perfect Father have for me? So I went from not supposed to be being here to totally giving up everything and being willing to lose everything, trying to find who I was, to the end of finding what true grace and mercy is. And I gotta say, I haven't looked back since, because there's nothing worth losing everything for. It's once I found that grace and that mercy, I realized I don't need to run away anymore. I can run too. So I open this with a verse, and I'm going to end this with a verse. Isaiah 48:10. See, I have refined you, though not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. God truly took my life and forged me in fire to make me as strong as I am today. That's all that matters to me anymore. I don't care what I ever become, because I already know who I am. I'm Stuart.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to join us and find out more about our Savior, Jesus Christ, please reach out to us through our website, clcwhidbey.com.